They told you it was over. They told you that if you didn't figure it out by 20, 30, 40, it meant you never would. They said success has a deadline, that your window closed while you were still trying to remember who you were. But what if they were wrong? What if every failure was actually a foundation? What if everything you thought disqualified you was the very thing that made you dangerous? It's never too late to start again, not if you are still breathing, not if you still feel that quiet ache in your soul, the one that whispers, you were made for more. You see, the clock they built, it doesn't run your life. You are not on their schedule. You are not bound by their timelines. The only expiration date is the one you accept. You've been told to play it safe, to settle, to survive. But deep down, you know you weren't built to survive. You were built to rise. The ashes are not your ending. They are your starting line. The world is filled with people who had the perfect plan and still failed. But the ones we remember, the ones we quote, admire, and try to become, they weren't perfect. They were relentless. Lincoln lost election after election before he became president. Edison failed over 1,000 times before the light stayed on. Colonel Sanders was rejected over 1,000 times before someone took a bite of his chicken. Do you hear me 1,000 times? You don't need perfect timing. You need unshakable belief. And maybe that's where you forgot your power. You measured yourself by the wrong clock. You thought because you had a breakdown, you couldn't have a breakthrough. You thought because you paused, you couldn't restart. But that's not how greatness works. Greatness doesn't keep score. It just asks one question. Are you willing to begin again? You say you are tired. Good. That means you tried. You say you are afraid. Good. That means you are human. But now, you must become more than that. Now, you must become honest. Because the truth is, you didn't stop because you failed. You stopped because you forgot who you are. And I'm here to remind you. You were not put here to follow. You were not born to disappear quietly. You are the author of this next chapter. And yes, you lost time, but so what? Lost time is not lost purpose. It's a test. They don't test diamonds with praise. They test them with pressure. They don't test lions in comfort. They test them in the hunt. You are not behind. You are being refined. So let's get this straight. You're not starting over with nothing. You're starting again with experience, with scars that turned into lessons, with wisdom that no textbook could have taught you. Your detour was not a mistake, it was a message. Now the question is, will you listen to it? Will you wake up and realize that the pain wasn't punishment? It was preparation. That the failure wasn't the end. It was the fire. You've been heated, broken, stretched, and now you are forged, ready to build again. Stronger, sharper, clearer. You've seen what happens when you hesitate. Now it's time to see what happens when you commit. Fully, fiercely. Finally, forget who you were. Forget what they said. Forget the rules written by those too afraid to restart. This is your life, your voice, your fire, your permission. You don't need the world to believe in you. You don't need 10 steps to success. You need one moment of decision. One breath of courage. One whisper to yourself. I'm not done yet. Say it again. I'm not done yet. Because the day you believe that, the world starts to shift, not in applause, not in praise, but in alignment. Opportunities begin to lean toward the one who moves. Doors open to the one who knocks. And power returns to the one who decides. So decide, not tomorrow, not next year, not when it's easy. Now, because you are not late, you are right on time. The fire you need. It's not in some podcast, not in some book. It's already inside you waiting to be obeyed. You just forgot to fan it. You just forgot to feed it. You just forgot to believe it. But now you remember. Now you rise. You rise not as the person you were, but as the person you were always meant to be. Refined by failure, sharpened by silence, strengthened by every moment you thought broke you. You rise with the wisdom that nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the confusion, not the seasons you spent hidden. The delay did not deny you, it developed you. And now the time you thought was gone becomes the very soil where your future will grow. The world loves to reward the one who never stopped. But what it fears is the one who stopped and came back stronger. Because the man who falls and stays down is predictable. But the one who rises, again and again and again, that man cannot be stopped. You've seen what a half-life feels like. When you're alive but not ignited. When you breathe but don't build, that ends today. You are not just surviving anymore. You are returning. You are rebuilding. You are remembering the mission you once swore to. This is your war cry to the world. I am not done. I have just begun. The enemy is not time. The enemy is hesitation, the lie that whispers. You're too old. You're too late. You're too far behind. Number, you are right where you're supposed to be. Because the best beginnings often come from the darkest places. Let me ask you something. What if your greatest chapter hasn't been written yet because you haven't had the guts to demand it? What if the reason the world hasn't bowed to your gift is because you kept hiding it behind excuses and emotion? You don't need more proof. You don't need more time. You need to make a vow. A vow to stop begging for life to happen and start commanding it into motion. A vow to stop negotiating with your distractions and start executing with precision. A vow to live with urgency, not panic, but purpose. Because there are two types of men in this world: the man who lets time make his decisions, and the man who decides what time must do for him. You say you want a new life, then burn the script of your old one. You can't take the crown and keep the chains. You can't walk into freedom while dragging the narrative of failure behind you. You must drop it, all of it. The regret, the shame, the embarrassment of starting over, because starting over is not weakness, it's wisdom. Only the prideful stay buried, the wise resurrect. And the world does not belong to those who never fell. It belongs to those who dared to get back up and move with fire. You don't need to be the fastest. You don't need to be the best. You need to be consistent. You need to be clear. You need to be certain that the life you are building is worthy of every ounce of sweat and silence. Because it won't always be easy. You'll wake up some days, and the voice will come again, the one that says, "What's the point? Answer it." The point is becoming. The point is proving to yourself that you are not defined by what went wrong, that even if the whole world forgot who you are, you remember, and you will show them. This is not about the applause. It's not about recognition. It's about restoration, of discipline, of fire, of vision, of the version of you that never needed permission. So say this with me now. I begin again. And this time, I finish. Let the old version of you be buried by this sentence. Let every missed opportunity fuel the hunger for this one. Let every no you ever heard become the echo that powers your yes. Because you are not here to be remembered for what almost was. You are here to become the standard, the blueprint, the proof that it's never too late to start again, and finish louder than you ever began. And when you finish, you won't just finish with results. You'll finish with reign, with ownership over the ground you once crawled across. Because this is not just a comeback. This is a coronation, a crowning of the man who refused to be erased, a man who rewrote his destiny, not in comfort, but in conviction. Look around. Most are waiting for signs, waiting for someone to believe in them, waiting for motivation to strike like lightning. But lightning doesn't build empires. Relentless repetition does. The kind that happens when no one claps, the kind that continues when no one watches, the kind that becomes law. You want to change your life? Then change your standard, not your clothes, not your phone. Not your schedule, your standard. Because until you raise the bar on what you will allow from yourself, life will give you the minimum. Minimum respect, minimum results, minimum clarity. But the moment you say, no more, the moment you say, I build now, the universe shifts. Because now, you're not asking for success. You are commanding alignment. You were not born for reaction. You were not born for consumption. You were not born to watch other people live your dream and pretend it doesn't sting. You were born to build, and that begins the moment you realize one truth. Life doesn't owe you clarity. You owe life commitment. Clarity is not given. It's earned, in the silence after the decision, in the discomfort of daily discipline, in the fire of repetition. The man who waits to feel ready never moves, but the man who decides, regardless of how he feels, he becomes unstoppable. He doesn't just build habits, he builds identity. He doesn't just have a routine, he becomes ritual. Say this now and burn it into your spine. I decide, I act, I become. Not once. Not when it's convenient. Every single day. There will be days when you feel slow. There will be nights when the doubt returns. But the difference between the man who makes it and the one who fades isn't the doubt. It's the response, the one who makes it. He doesn't fight doubt. He works through it. He doesn't collapse in delay. He doubles down. Because the man who repeats with precision is more dangerous than the man who starts with passion. Let me be clear, you don't need intensity, you need consistency. The soft whisper of not today must now be met with the roar of I move anyway. The itch to escape must be replaced by the command to endure. Because the finish line doesn't reward mood, it rewards movement. So move. Move when you're tired, move when you're scared, move when no one believes in it. Move even if your knees shake and your voice trembles. Because once you've decided to rise again, nothing else matters but the follow through. They may doubt you now, let them. But they won't doubt you forever. Because the man who moves in silence is the man the world hears last and remembers longest. This is your silence. This is your rise. This is the chapter they thought you'd never write. And now you write it in sweat, in scars, in standard. And soon, the world won't just notice. It will adjust. The world will adjust not because you shouted louder, but because you stood firmer. Because when a man refuses to retreat, when he shows up without applause, when he executes without reassurance, that man bends reality. That man doesn't chase momentum. He becomes it. You have to understand, the universe doesn't yield to the clever. It yields to the consistent. To the man who builds when he's invisible. To the man who trains in darkness. To the man who returns, even when no one is watching, even when every part of him begs for comfort. That man cannot be ignored forever. So let this be your turning point. Not a spark, not a surge. A shift. A violent, permanent shift from potential to principle. From good intentions to iron execution. Burn this into your identity. I do not return to who I was. I do not pause for permission. I do not break for emotion. I build, no matter the weight. And when your thoughts drift back to the old life, the hesitation, the waiting, the fantasy of ease, you answer them with action. Because your future doesn't speak in feelings. It speaks in patterns. Every day you skip, you teach your mind that your goals are negotiable. Every day you drift, you train your body to expect failure. But every day you return, you rewrite the code. You build a rhythm. You anchor a law so deep, even your weakness begins to obey it. You think discipline is hard. You haven't tasted the regret of inconsistency. You think waking up early hurts. Wait until you wake up 10 years from now, still explaining why you never began. The pain of doing is sharp, but temporary. The pain of delay, that becomes your personality. And you've worn it long enough. Now you become something else. A man who does not explain. A man who does not perform. A man who executes with such relentless simplicity, the world stops asking questions and starts taking notes. No, it won't be glamorous. There are no fireworks in consistency. There are no cheers. When you wake before the sun, when you read the same words again and again, when you move in silence. But hear this, the man who moves in silence eventually moves everything around him, because force doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just keeps going. So if you're still waiting for the right moment, this is it. Not because the world said so, but because you said so. You drew the line, you buried the old self. You declared this day sacred, not for what it gives you, but for what it demands from you. You are not rebuilding a version of the past. You are not returning to who you were. You are constructing something unshakable, a version of you forged in fire, governed by law, and fed by repetition. This isn't about hype. It's not about chasing dreams. It's about becoming the man who finishes what others only fantasize about. And when they ask how you did it, when they try to dissect your rise, they won't find magic. They'll find a pattern, a process, a man who didn't stop, a man who started again and never looked back. Because once you start again, not with hope, but with command, you stop waiting for life to give you signs. You become the sign. You become the signal that says, this is what relentless looks like. This is what redemption sounds like. This is what rebuilding feels like. Not easy, not soft, but certain. And certainty doesn't come from knowing the outcome. It comes from knowing yourself. From being the man who no longer needs to convince the world he's serious, because his presence proves it, his habits prove it, his silence proves it. You are not chasing the life you lost. You are creating one no version of you has ever touched. And to do that, you must act with violence. Not against others, but against delay, against emotion, against every version of you that ever flinched in the face of discomfort. Comfort is not your home anymore. Clarity is. Clarity that you rise before your excuses. Clarity that you build before you're motivated. Clarity that the man you want to be won't be found. He will be forged. And forging takes heat. It takes pressure. It takes a level of daily, ruthless honesty most men run from. But not you. You've run before, but this time, you return. Not with apology, not with shame. With fire in your eyes and laws in your blood. You no longer rely on momentum. You manufacture it. You no longer seek permission. You embody it. Every action you take is a vote for your future. Every repetition is a war against your past. And every morning you show up, even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching. You leave the echo of a king in a world full of noise. You've had enough of starting and stopping. You've buried the guilt. You've grieved the wasted time. Now you build, not with rage, but with reason. Not with hope, but with hierarchy. Not with emotion, but with execution. Let them wonder what changed. Let them speculate. You don't owe the world an explanation. Your new standard will speak for you, and it will speak loud. Not in volume, but in velocity, in the speed with which you make decisions, in the intensity of your focus, in the sacredness of your routine. No more fragile goals, no more optional disciplines, no more I'll try. From now on, you return, period. Because the man who returns, daily fiercely without excuse, is the man the future can no longer ignore. So speak this into the walls of your mind, into the mirror, into the silence of 5 a.m., into every room that once saw you fail. I do not need another chance. I take it. I do not wait for change. I am it. I do not seek the path. I build it. Step by step, breath by breath, day after unskipped day. And when doubt shows up, because it will, don't fight it. Just move anyway. Because nothing silences fear like consistency. And nothing defeats time like a man who refuses to skip. You don't need to rush. You just need to repeat. And repeat. And repeat. Until every brick becomes a wall. Until every strike becomes a rhythm. Until your future no longer resists you. Because it recognizes you. Not as the man who almost did it. Not as the man who used to be promising. But as the man who returned and never left again. Because when you refuse to leave, when you plant yourself at the door of your destiny and knock every day without fail, eventually the door opens, not out of mercy, not out of magic, out of law. The law of the man who outlasts his excuses. The law of the man who rewires his identity through action. The law of the man who no longer prays for strength, but proves he has it through every repetition. Let this settle deep into your bones. You are not chasing success. You are becoming structure. And structure does not sway. Structure does not apologize. Structure holds. Even in the storm, you used to beg for opportunities. Now, you become the man they're looking for. You used to crave results. Now, you crave rhythm. Because you finally understand. It was never about speed. It was always about return. Return to the page. Return to the plan. Return to the gym. Return to your promise. Return to the fire, even when the flame is low. Most people touch greatness for a moment and let go. But the few, the ones who build legacies, they grip tighter. They repeat even when it's boring. They stay even when it's quiet. They execute, even when the feeling is gone. That's who you are now. You are not chasing a goal. You are protecting a law. The law of your new identity. And this identity doesn't care if you feel tired. It doesn't check in with your mood. It doesn't require a second opinion. It is decided, because emotion is seasonal. Circumstances are unstable. But law is sacred. And you've written yours in the ink of action. You don't hope to be great anymore. You move like a man who already is. You don't pray for a break. You show up like the break is already yours. You don't wait for motivation. You bury it under discipline and watch something far more dangerous grow in its place. Conviction. You don't need to know how it all ends. You just need to show up tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Because every time you show up, you add weight to your name. You add proof to your promise. You add fuel to your becoming. You are no longer a man hoping for transformation. You are a man building it, one strike at a time, one breath at a time, one unwavering repetition at a time. And there will come a day, soon, when those who laughed will go quiet, when those who doubted will stare in disbelief, when those who left will try to return. But by then, it won't even matter, because you won't be proving them wrong. You'll be proving yourself right for not giving up, right for starting again, right for trusting your silence more than their noise. And on that day, when the world finally sees what you built, they'll call it overnight success. But you'll know the truth. It was never sudden. It was built in silence. It was forged in routine. It was born in your decision. To start again and never stop. And now, you don't just move forward, you lead. Not with titles, not with noise, but with weight. The weight of a man who's done the work in secret. The weight of a man who no longer bends under doubt, because doubt has seen him return too many times to argue. You are no longer a man chasing possibility. You are a man governed by inevitability. Every word you speak now carries history behind it. Every step you take echoes with proof. Every decision you make tells the world, this is not a phase. This is who I am now. And the world adjusts. It always does. It bows not to trends, but to consistency. It rewards not passion, but precision. It remembers not the loudest, but the most unshakable. You don't need to tell people you've changed. Let your schedule do that. Let your silence speak. Let your repetition scream. Because the man who repeats in darkness will never have to beg for light. This is your law now. I do not skip. I do not stall. I do not disappear. I deliver. And you deliver daily, not with perfection, not with ease, but with non-negotiable movement. You have crossed a line most never reach. The line between wishing and willing. The line between hoping and holding. The line between someday and right now. And from this point forward, there's no going back. Not because someone won't let you, but because you won't let you. You have seen who you can become. You have tasted the power that comes from structure. You have felt the difference between motivation and law. And now that you know, how could you ever go back? Back to fragile goals. Back to flexible discipline. Back to apologizing for not being ready. Number that version of you died, the day you decided. And this version, the one who builds, repeats, finishes, he's just getting started. Let others talk. Let others wait. Let others start again and stop again. You move forward like a man who's already arrived. Because in your mind, you have, not in ego, in identity. Because you didn't just build habits, you built honor. You didn't just set goals, you became a law. And this law, it does not break. It does not waver. It does not ask, it commands. So when life tests you again, and it will, when it throws silence, delay, failure, fatigue, you do not flinch. You return. You return with clarity. You return with posture. You return with the words burned into your bones. I start again, not to repeat the past, but to rewrite the future. And rewrite it you will, day by day, thought by thought, standard by standard, until even time itself knows your name. And when time knows your name, it no longer asks what you want. It listens. Because now you are not reacting to life. You are constructing it, brick by brick, thought by thought, routine by sacred routine. You've become more than a man with ambition. You've become a system, a rhythm, a force that no longer depends on the clock, on the weather, on how you feel. You move, not because the world says, go, but because you already decided. Let that settle. You are no longer the man who checks in with his emotions to see if today is the day. You are the man who makes today, the day, every day. You don't need momentum. You are momentum. You don't need the right mood. You have the right mission. You don't need permission. You gave it to yourself. This is what power feels like. Not loud, not flashy, but settled. The kind of power that walks into a room and doesn't have to prove anything. Because when you've built yourself in silence for long enough, everything around you gets louder. Opportunities appear. Doors unlock. People ask, how did you do it? And you'll smile. Not because you had some secret, but because you repeated what they abandoned. They want your secret, but they wouldn't survive your schedule. They want your results, but they'd quit after 1 week in your routine. Because what you've built isn't just impressive, it's earned. And that's what makes it undeniable. You are no longer hoping to become anything. You are the man who doesn't ask if he should start. You are the man who starts again. Without hesitation. You are the man who holds the line when others drop it. You are the man who returns to his post when the world is too tired to try. You are not here to inspire others. That's a side effect. You are here to enforce the law of who you are. And that law is simple. I move until it is done, and then I move again. That law lives in your bones now, in your early morning, in your late night, in your stillness, in your sprint. And from this moment forward, no one gets to define you by your past. No voice, no failure, no delay has the right to speak louder than your pattern, because your pattern is louder than proof. It is the sound of sovereignty, the sound of returning, the sound of replacing hesitation with holy repetition. You used to wonder if you were behind. Now you realize you were just gathering strength. You were not late. You were loading. And now that you've begun again, truly begun, the world will have no choice but to adjust to the weight of your presence. You do not ask if the timing is right. You declare it, and you do not beg for impact. You become it. Let the world chase trends. Let the world start over every January. You return every morning, unshaken, unmoved, unapologetically clear. You're not starting over. You're starting as a new man, one who cannot be stopped, one who cannot be denied, because once a man has rebuilt himself from within, the world outside can no longer break him. It can try, it can press, delay, resist, but it cannot undo what was written in repetition. Not when every breath he takes is governed by principle. Not when every step he takes echoes with purpose. And that's what you are now. Purpose in motion, conviction in human form. You no longer wonder if it's working, you know it is. Because the results were never the goal. The man you became in the process was. And that man, he doesn't chase, he commands. You've seen what a fragile life looks like, ruled by distraction, guided by impulse, shattered by delay. But that isn't you anymore. You don't drift, you don't guess, you don't make progress reports. You make decisions. Decisions that are final. Decisions that don't wait for applause. Decisions that build cathedrals of consistency, one non-negotiable brick at a time. And that's what this life becomes now, a cathedral, not built in hype, not built in noise, built in silence, built in order, built by law. And law doesn't tremble, it doesn't ask, it doesn't get tired, it enforces. Let others talk about vision. You've already written yours in your calendar. Let others post about goals. You've already built yours into your bones. This is what freedom actually looks like. Not unlimited options, but unchangeable standards. This is what power feels like. Not control over others, but absolute control over yourself. And when they ask why you are so calm now, why you are so precise, why your results seem to compound while they scramble, you won't need to explain, because law doesn't explain. Law simply exists. You are no longer in the business of convincing. You are in the business of demonstration. And your life now, it demonstrates. It demonstrates what happens when a man stops performing and starts governing. It demonstrates what changes when a man replaces mood with mission. It demonstrates what becomes possible when a man dares to say, I will not be ruled by the past. I will begin again, and this time, I finish. And you will finish. Not because it's easy, not because you are lucky, not because someone finally gave you a chance. You will finish because you built the pattern that makes finishing inevitable. That's the difference now. You're not hoping, you're executing. You're not reacting, you're ruling. You're not inspired, you're anchored. And from that anchor, you build. You build relationships that last. You build a legacy that won't fade. You build a standard that cannot be ignored. This isn't just about wealth. This is about weight. The weight of being a man who became unchangeable. And now finally, you see it. Every failure forged it. Every delay defined it. Every skipped day you refused to repeat became the reason you rise now without effort, without question, without doubt. Because you've earned the right to say, I don't try anymore, I am. And when a man becomes, he no longer needs to prove. Because the proof is in his presence. The energy shifts when he enters a room. Not because he demands attention, but because he commands alignment. The world senses it. That he is no longer becoming something someday. He is something now. Not potential, not hope, identity. You walk differently now, not arrogantly, but deliberately. Because every step you take is a declaration. This ground is mine, not because I took it, because I earned it. And no one can steal what's been internalized. No one can shake what's become law. Let others play the game of status, appearance, shortcuts. You play the long game, the deep game. The only game that matters, the one where you win in private so hard, the world has to acknowledge it in public. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's not even mindset. It's execution. You used to ask for signs. Now, you move like one. A living reminder of what happens when a man aligns his actions with his aim. Daily, ruthlessly, repeatedly. And what has this repetition given you, more than results? It has given you peace. Peace. Not as a reward, but as a right. Not because life got easier, but because you got unshakable. The old you would collapse under chaos. The new you operates in it. Because when your standard is non-negotiable, the storm becomes irrelevant. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need ideal support. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need to show up. Show up before dawn. Show up after loss. Show up when doubt is loud and faith is quiet. Because the man who shows up no matter what becomes the man who cannot be removed, no matter what. And that's who you are now. Not an amateur waiting for motivation. A professional of self-governance. A practitioner of law over feeling. So when the resistance returns, as it always does, when life asks again, do you really want this? You won't answer with words. You'll answer with rhythm. With stillness. With one more day on the line, one more repetition, one more act of discipline, so pure, the question itself dissolves. This is what it means to be inevitable. Not loud, not praised, just undeniable. And you'll be misunderstood. They'll call it obsession. They'll call it overkill. Let them. They don't know what it's like to rebuild from nothing but decision. They don't know what it takes to rise, not with motivation, but with memory. Memory of who you used to be. Memory of what you nearly gave up. Memory of the line you drew when you whispered, never again. And you kept that promise. Not once, not twice, but daily. Through resistance. Through obscurity. Through silence. And now, you no longer chase change. You are change. You no longer seek greatness. You repeat greatness. You no longer fear the clock. Because time obeys the man who does not skip. Say this now, and say it without doubt, without weakness, without looking back. I've started again. I do not stop. I do not stall. I do not wait. I arrive, every day, until destiny bows. And when destiny bows, it won't be a moment of surprise. It will feel natural, expected, earned. Because you didn't stumble into success, you structured it. Every piece of the life you're building now isn't a result of chance. It's the harvest of your alignment. It's the reward for every morning you rose without applause, for every repetition that nobody saw, for every day you refused to disappear, even when disappearing would have been easier. This is not about talent. This is not about luck. This is about law. And law rewards the one who obeys it longer than anyone else is willing to. So while others are still chasing motivation like addicts, you've built an internal empire that doesn't need hype to move. You've reprogrammed your mind to no longer depend on the weather of your feelings. Now, your life is ruled by seasons of intention. You plant. You water. You harvest. Then you do it again. This isn't a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's dominion. Sovereignty over the space between who you were and who you promised to become. And now you've crossed it. And now you don't just move. You model. Your life becomes the blueprint for others, even if they never tell you. Your rhythm becomes a mirror to those who thought it was too late. Your rise becomes proof that it's never too late to start again. Because people don't believe in second chances. They believe in the man who uses his. People don't believe in overnight change. They believe in relentless pattern. And people don't follow words. They follow weight. You carry weight now, not because of your past, but because of your pattern, because you chose to become structure, to become law, to become the man whose habits are louder than his voice. And now the results. They're not a surprise. They're not magic. They're math. You showed up when no one clapped. Now the crowd doesn't faze you. You built when no one noticed. Now the spotlight feels irrelevant. You became the man who finishes what he starts. And now, nothing can interrupt you. Let them call it discipline. Let them call it strategy. You know what it really is. It's decision, enforced daily, with zero exit plan. And now you've become the rarest thing in this world. A man who is consistent without conditions. A man who acts regardless of applause, regardless of emotion, regardless of how far he still has to go. Because you've seen what happens when a man returns to his path and refuses to step off it again. You've seen what's possible when you stop rewriting your goals every month and start repeating your standards every morning. You've seen what it looks like to live a life where your calendar is louder than your inspiration. And now, you're no longer chasing power. You've become the proof of it. Say, this one final time, not as a phrase, but as law etched into your core. It's never too late to start again. But once I start, I do not stop. I do not skip. I do not vanish. I rise, until the life I saw becomes the life I stand in. And then, keep going. And now, the voice goes quiet. Not because the message has ended, but because you heard what you needed. Not all revolutions come with fireworks. Some begin with a whisper in the dark. I'm not done. And that whisper becomes a rhythm. And that rhythm becomes law. And that law becomes a man who cannot be removed. You don't need more content. You don't need more advice. You need to go. With your new law. With your new spine. With your new oath. You've already begun again, so don't stop for applause. Don't wait for the perfect time. Just repeat until the world bends. This is not motivation. This is your rebirth. And from this day forward, you are not the man who might. You are the man who does.